Hello, and thank you for joining us today as we discuss cyber physical systems, or CPS, and how to develop a security strategy for your CPS, IoT, and OT systems. As we'll discuss, cyber physical systems have recently become vital for business and security leaders to protect. A clear and thoughtful vision for your CPS security has never been more important. My name is Phil Nere, and I'm the Director of IoT and Industrial Cybersecurity at Microsoft. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Gartner VP Analyst Katell Thielemann, who focuses on risk and security of cyber physical systems. Previously, Katell worked at GE and Honeywell, making her very familiar with the unique requirements of industrial and critical infrastructure environments. Thank you very much, Katell, for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with some definitions before we dive in. What do you mean by cyber physical systems, and what is generally involved with cyber physical system security?
Sure. Well, very simply, cyber physical systems are the intersection between the cyber world and the physical world. And so anytime you have cyber environments that are doing things in the real world, CPS are created. And that's really important because unlike IT systems that basically process data, CPS actually do something. There is an actuation, there is sensing, there is a process. There is something that is happening in the real world. And I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show How It's Made. I think it's a great show that basically, tells you how candy's being made, how tires are being made, right? Those are all using systems. Think about robotic arms. Think about processing technology for oil and gas, or water purification systems, meat processing, grain processing, baggage handling in airports, and even building management systems. You name it. Our entire civilization relies on these assets that bridge both the cyber and the real physical world. And so we rely on CPS all around us. And so it is very important to secure them. They live in the real world and have very unique security needs.
That's great. Okay, so then how do cyber physical systems relate to IoT and OT? Are they the same? Are they different?
They're really all the same in the sense that organizations can rally their employees or their customers around terms like IoT for Internet of Things, or OT for operational technologies, or IoT for industrial IoT, or even smart, you name it, smart grids, smart buildings, smart cities. People can choose whatever terms make sense to them in their environment, but at Gartner, for our security and risk practitioners and the leaders in organizations, what we feel is really, truly important is whatever the business term is, from a security standpoint, it's really important to realize that cyber physical systems exist, and therefore that the security approaches and strategies and practices need to have an asset-centric view. And by using terms like cyber physical systems, it also underscores that the security approaches need to be considered both in the cyber and the physical worlds, and at the intersection of both.
Got it. And then, so why should businesses and IT teams care about cyber physical system security today?
Well, number one, because they're already largely surrounded by them, whether they know it or not. There is an increased number of interconnected cyber-physical systems connecting to each other. And so the number of challenges and the number of risks will only increase. What has happened over time is a lot of assets, particularly in industrial and critical infrastructure environments, that were never designed to be connected back to enterprise systems or even to each other in some cases, over time have become so. And it's been driven by business needs, the need for more data, more information. And then we also have net new CPS being deployed out there. Think about automation and robots. And many security leaders are really still only focused on traditional IT and data breach protection. And they're not focusing on all of these assets. And frankly, it's a huge gaping hole in most organization security practices. Many are still in the awareness stage, and we've seen some important incidents recently that are raising that awareness. Thankfully, it's a shame it's happening as a result of incidents, but at least it's happening. And what is also really, really important for people to consider is, if you really think about it, CPS are usually the technology part of the organization where actual business value is created. I mean, think about it. If you're a manufacturer, you're not creating value out of your payroll system, right? The payroll system is a productivity tool. It's an important tool, certainly, and certainly to employees, most particularly, but that's not where value is created. The value is actually created in your plants, in your factories. So if you shut down the plants, the factories, you basically shut down revenue and profits as well. So there's an additional consideration here. And the threats and the risk that come with CPS can really have a wide range of impacts, from shutting down your factories and your gas pipelines all the way to, for instance, loss of life and environmental incidents.
Got it. Okay, well, can you give us some examples of recent CPS attacks and what the consequences were?
Sure. Before I get there, let me talk a little bit about motives as well. Because going back to my point on business value, CPS largely hold for a lot of organizations your secret sauce, right? A lot of your IP, your specialized processes. So they're going to be targeted by everyone, whether it's nation states with, geopolitical or espionage and IP exfiltration motives. We've seen a lot of those. We're starting to see chatter around terrorist cells who may want to destabilize your critical infrastructure. And clearly, we've also seen cyber criminal gangs who want to compel you to pay ransoms. You could also have disgruntled employees. So I think keeping that broad view of motives can now dovetails into actual incidents that we've seen, right? We've seen malware threats, Mirai bots, for instance, and all of its variants. We have, unfortunately, recently seen ransomware attacks. The Colonial Pipeline incident in May of this year basically shut down, gas fuel pumps in half of the country. We've seen a food processor being targeted, JBS, one of the largest meat packing companies out there. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen agricultural co-ops being targeted, healthcare systems have been targeted. And we're also now starting to see threat vectors that are specifically designed for industrial CPS. For instance, the Triton malware has been specifically designed to target safety systems in industrial settings. Think about that, right? We've seen the Ramsey and the USB ferry exploits that are specifically designed to target air gaps. So when people think, I'm good, I'm air gapped, right? Security via obscurity. That's no longer the case. And then on top of it, we're also now seeing attacks in what we call in the industrial world, the carpeted areas of organizations. Microsoft, for instance, has discovered some new exploits targeting voice over IP phones, connected printers in those areas. And in a lot of organizations, the networks have flattened over time, and they're using those entry points to then target the CPS in operational settings. So we've seen a lot of recent attacks. If I can add one more, because I think it's really important, in linking sort of the CPS world to critical infrastructure and linking that back to the economic stability of an entire area, just in the last few months, ports and transportation systems in South Africa were targeted for ransomware, and they targeted CPS in the ports and in the logistics sectors. And it so happened that they targeted those incidents to coincide with what is largely the biggest time of year to export fruit from the entire region. And when you start seeing this happen, and basically for an entire week, no goods can be shipped out, and particularly goods that have a shelf life, you can then start seeing the potential ramification and why focusing on CPS is really important, not just at the organizational level, but to also understand the potential ripple effects for an entire region.
Great. And then you mentioned the gas pipeline attack, and we know that they targeted the enterprise IT systems. Why did they choose to shut down the operational systems?
Well, we haven't seen all the details yet, but one or two things is likely true. Either they knew that their systems and their networks were flat, and there was a likelihood of the operational systems, the CPS that actually move the gas, might be impacted by the malware. So either they knew and they were concerned, or equally frightening, they actually didn't know whether there was a likelihood that they could be impacted. So either way, they took it down, and that tells you something about the interconnectivity of all of these systems.
Yeah, and that's something we see a lot. We see that most organizations don't really know all the connections that exist between their IT and their OT systems. We know they have to have those connections if they're running a CRM and they want to monitor production, send information back and forth. They need that connectivity to keep things going. So give us an overview sort of at the highest level. What are the top three things that, from a business risk point of view, we should be concerned about with CPS attacks?
Well, certainly lost revenue, from production downtime is a big one. An equally very, very large one relates to IP theft. Think about the exfiltration of proprietary formulas or proprietary designs, things of the sort. Clearly, because again, these CPS live in the physical world, safety considerations are extremely important. And, there's also the potential for environmental incidents. Think about if the gas pipeline started leaking, for instance, that would be a pretty big disaster. Because of all of that, corporate liability, brand reputational impact, all of these things really come into the environment from a risk management standpoint.
Yeah, so it sounds like these are exactly the kinds of risks that boards are concerned about. Why is this a new area for CISOs and their teams?
Well, think about the term CISO, right? It's a Chief Information Security Officer. And so basically, traditionally, that role was created to focus on protecting information and data in the corporate networks. But as the cyber and the physical worlds are becoming more connected, basically the bad guys are increasingly targeted CPS more intentionally. And what is important for CISOs who are information security centric in their world, what really matters is what we call the CIA triad, right? The confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of data, focusing on that. But when you move beyond the information-centric view and this data-centric security mindset, and you recognize that the traditional IT security approaches, I mean, Microsoft is, obviously very fond of Patch Tuesdays. Well, you're not going to do Patch Tuesdays the same way when you're dealing with CPS. Because you don't at will, stop all of these processes in industrial settings, for instance. You don't at will stop creating electricity or treating wastewater, right? So you really need to think about security in a completely different way. And what we're actually starting to see emerge is a role around a chief security officer beyond the CISO role that starts pulling together some of the disciplines regarding cybersecurity, physical security, facility security, supply chain security, in some organization, even product security, because a lot of organizations are themselves in the business of creating and selling more and more connected assets that are CPS. So it really challenges the traditional information-centric CISO role in major, major ways.
Okay. And so what do you recommend as the 7 steps for building a security vision and strategy and finding a way to make this resonate with stakeholders, with the board, who may not be interested in all the technical details? Yeah,
that's a very great point. Well, step number 1 is to start with a vision statement, right? And to set the right tone. Importantly, to be business-centric in setting that tone. Not the security geek speak that you were just mentioning about, where boards' eyes just glaze over. For instance, if you're a public utility, you might want to anchor your vision statement around enabling the delivery of this reliable, high quality electricity services by ensuring the safety, the resilience, the compliance, and the security of operations from processing facilities and transmission infrastructure all the way to your client interactions, right? That would be an example of a vision statement that, number 1, links to the business outcomes, in this case, the production. It links through the entire life cycle, and it brings about this focus on not just information security, but also, as I mentioned, the safety, the resilience, right, and the operational angles. So that would be step number 1. Step number 2 would be to do a current state assessment. What does CPS security look like in your environment today? Is anybody even focusing on that? It means going out of your traditional comfort zones, if you're in IT security, for instance, and reaching out to the operations team, to the engineering teams, to the maintenance teams, the facilities teams, the supply chain or product managers, and talking to them about what is going on in the environment today with regard to CPS security. Is anybody even in charge? Getting out of the IT offices and getting a clear picture of the security situation out there on the ground. And I can guarantee you, as a Gartner analyst, I talk to hundreds and hundreds of our Gartner clients every year. And it's pretty shocking what happens when this current state assessment occurs, because the 3rd step then triggers a gap analysis. And this is where we see a lot of shocking findings, frankly, where what people thought were well segregated Purdue 5-layer networks have become flat over time, misconfigured firewalls everywhere, open ports everywhere, very old unsupported operating systems everywhere, a lot of shared passwords, as in a lot of these environments. You've got a lot of shift personnel. People come, they work their 8-hour shift, they get others coming in, and there's sticky notes with passwords everywhere. You also have a lot of original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, of OT equipment that are contractually allowed to remote in. You've got contractors coming in, and really big issues with a lack of skilled security personnel in those environments. So you name it, it's really not a pretty picture out there. And so when that gap analysis starts uncovering all of these issues, the next step has to be prioritization, because you can't tackle it all. It really is an important step to figure out what really are your crown jewels out there. What are your high value assets that, if they were successfully targeted, would bring, would shut you down, or would really impact, safety of your personnel, or would really impact your revenue and profits. And with that, you need to bring about a hybrid IT approach, because it's, the traditional OT security centric alone of firewalls and network segregation. Now that we're in this CPS world, there's got to be an in-between between the IT security practices that don't make sense in an operational environment and the traditional OT security centric, firewall network centric approaches that are no longer enough when you have to take an asset-centric view. And so you need to, figure out, okay, now that I know what my high-value assets, I need to get approval, usually, from the boards, from the C-suite, because this will take investments. The legacy technical debt out there from a security standpoint is just tremendous. And so investments will need to be made, and then you're going to have to create some form of governance and reporting. We are seeing a really, really big uptick in compliance, new regulatory frameworks coming out. The Colonial Pipeline issue that I mentioned, within literally a couple of months of it happening, CISA from the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA, which by the few people realize, but every one of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors in the US is assigned an agency. In the case of pipelines, it's TSA. Well, CISA and TSA came together and within a couple of weeks of each other released some really far-reaching security directives. And now TSA is about to do the exact same thing for the rail sector and for the airport operations sector, and there's going to be more to come. So, that next step of reporting is not just internal reporting and governance, but increasingly it's going to be external, back to the government. And Congress right now is even working on some legislation around reporting, so there's going to be more coming. And then obviously the last piece after that is continuous monitoring.
Got it. Yeah. So it sounds like organizations really need to break down some of these silos that have traditionally existed between OT and IT, and you mentioned physical security and facilities. So I see some benefits there from an organizational point of view as well. What do you see as some of the technologies that are required to reduce risk from cyber-physical system attacks?
Yeah, well, we're still very early stages. There are too many organizations out there that think security by obscurity is okay, right? But so the good news is if you're a provider of security solutions that target these environments, your runway is very, very long. Still early stages. Where we are right now is we're seeing a number of tools out there that do asset discovery, asset inventory, sort of the network topology mapping, and the beginnings of vulnerability management platforms. So those are a really good early start, because if you're an organization that has all of these assets connected everywhere, it's very likely that you don't have a neatly laid out architecture. So you need those platform tools to help you see what you have, to see the pedigree of all of these assets, and to see where some of your initial focus areas should be. And some of these platforms are now adding continuous monitoring, they're adding anomaly detection, they're adding some analytics, some AI, artificial intelligence, some automation and orchestration. They're starting to connect to and integrate into IT security tools like your SIEM, your SOC, your SOAR, and XDR. So the good news is that there are solutions, and obviously Microsoft has one of those. But what is needed moving forward in all of my discussions with end users is that they're looking to what additional features could I get? And really what they're starting to articulate is, how do I get a CPS protection platform? Not just an OT security platform, but a CPS protection platform that puts the asset-centric view of security at the center and tackles issues, for instance, beyond what is already available. So yeah, give me asset detection, give me inventory, give me monitoring, vulnerability management, but also add things like baselining and configuration management. Add things around secure communications. Not all CPS use a network. Some use Wi-Fi, some use GPS. We've got 5G coming on. Add things like risk scoring, risk prioritization, risk modeling, and link it to the business value, right? Remember my point about high value assets. They're also asking things like privilege access management, ports and removable media management, the USB problem I mentioned. Give me incident response management and automated playbooks. Give me supplier software and hardware assurance, because supply chain security concerns are huge in CPS. Think about all of these embedded components. And then on top of that, give me maybe executive or regulatory compliance reporting and anomaly detection and alerting. So the end user community out there is eager for more and more and more features that are not yet completely bundled together, but over time I think will be, because this notion of a CPS protection platform tool is sorely needed out there.
So from this discussion today, it's clear that business and security leaders need to develop a unique strategy for protecting their cyber-physical systems. And we've also seen that not doing so can have a profound impact on their businesses and beyond. Thank you, Katell, for joining us today to talk about the current CPS security landscape and how businesses can begin developing their cyber-physical security strategy.
My pleasure, Phil, and thank you for having me here.
We've already learned so much here at Microsoft Ignite. We've learned how to protect our organizations against the latest adversarial trends, stay resilient while managing risk and compliance, and how to strengthen our security posture from some of the industry's principal thought leaders. Now, get excited as we look ahead to the future of security in today's upcoming sessions. Hi, I'm Jessica Feku, Security Product Marketing Manager here at Microsoft. You just tuned in to Microsoft Director of IoT Industrial Cybersecurity Phil Naray and Gartner analyst Katell Thielemann walk us through how you can impress your board of directors by developing a security vision and a strategy for cyber physical and IoT OT systems. Learn more about this and how you can confidently embrace the future of security by checking out our other sessions. You won't want to miss this discussion with Microsoft Principal Program Manager Aaron Miyake, Principal Engineering Program Manager Glenn Coletta, and Senior Program Manager Maud Teja-Venezia, joined by Carnegie Mellon's Dan Costa on a discussion about the unique challenges of insider risk and how to build an effective insider risk management program to meet these needs. Do you have any questions about anything you've heard in today's sessions? Ask us in the chat. Join us with live subject matter experts that are available during every session. If you can't make a session, don't worry, we've got you covered. Everything's available on demand at aka.ms/msignite21_security/on-demand. For the latest on what's happening in Microsoft security, visit us on the web at www.microsoft.com/security or follow us on social at MSFT Security on Twitter, and Microsoft Security on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us at Microsoft Ignite.